Welcome, podcast number 4 with Built Different. Before we get started, I want to do a special thanks to Chris, Chasia, Amanda, and Kevin. As you can see, this is not the set we had in the last couple of weeks. We have a brand new set. They've put a lot of time and effort into it, and I'm sure you can see it. It blew me away when I saw it the first time, and just exciting to see growth in this. And we're going to bring a higher and higher quality product to you guys every single week, and especially today. Why do I say that? This guest I have today is awesome. I've had an opportunity to get get on TV with him on a Worcester local station, having to do with the new law that just changed on February 2nd of this year, having to do with accessory dwelling units, or a term you're going to be hearing a lot in this podcast, ADUs. And he's been in the real estate industry for over 20 years, but he's been champion this ADU new law and zoning over the last year and a half to 2 years, so that we can bring it to the masses and everybody can know how exciting these zoning changes are. Like I said, I've been in the construction industry for over 20 years, and you've seen some videos I've done recently where I'm like, I've never seen a zoning change like this ever in the 20 years I've been doing this. So it's really, really exciting stuff. It's probably the podcast. If you haven't seen any of my others and you haven't gotten past the very beginning, this is the one you got to watch, especially if you own any kind of house in Massachusetts. So what's the gentleman's name? His name is Avi Kauffman. So Avi, introduce yourself and say hello.
Hi, John. Thank you for having me on here. I'm very excited to be on your podcast to talk about ADUs and to talk about how this is a monumental change in how housing is looked at in this state. And, this is something that could really create a lot of housing. And also, I think is something that can really help a lot of people. 70-80% of the calls we get from people who are interested in ADUs, it's people looking at aging in place, or places for their parents, or places for their kids. So, this is something that touches almost every household at some point in their life, and it's going to make life better for a lot of people. So we're excited to be working on this and excited to be partnering with you on how we can get more people to understand what their rights are around ADUs.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And I can't wait to get to this first question, because when we were talking yesterday and kind of prepping for this, I was like, this is amazing. What homeowner in Massachusetts right now could do an ADU? One type of ADU that's out there. Well, what household or what specific type of homeowner could do one?
That's what's so incredible right now is this has completely opened up. Before, so you know how it works in here in most places, zoning is a patchwork. Every municipality has their own 200, 300 page PDF document that you practically need a PhD to understand.
Yep. Yep, that's
And they
right.
add to
You're
it
right
every
there.
year, right? They add to it every
Yeah.
year. And well, before you had to, most towns didn't allow. So an ADU, just to back up, this could be like a backyard cottage that someone puts behind their house. It could be an in-home
Yep.
apartment. It could be converting a basement, converting an attic. It could be an addition to your home. But the basic idea is it's an apartment that's separate from your home, but part of your home. It's still part of the same ownership. And what's exciting is that this new legislation that is now in effect as of February 2nd, 2025, anyone who lives in a single family zoned lot is allowed to have an ADU by right. Now, local regulations still, local setbacks and dimensional controls still apply, but you have a by right option to add an apartment. And that's not limited to just single families. We're talking about anyone in a single family zone.
That's amazing. I just hope that the folks out there realize how exciting and how much of a game changer that is, especially with the current economy. Everybody needs a few more bucks in the house. And to be able to all of a sudden get residual income because you have an open 3 rooms in your house that you don't typically use, and you could now, without even building something that's detached right in your house, you could start collecting rents within months.
Legally, and it's allowed. You can make your basement into an apartment, rent it out, get that extra income. We all know housing's in demand. A lot of the cases we've seen are even beyond that, where there's a real financial impact, a positive impact, but also just a social family impact too.
Yeah.
Lots of families, you have two working parents and you have kids, and it's a struggle for a lot of people. And at the same time, we talk about the sandwich generation where you're taking care of the kids and you're taking care of the parents.
Yep.
Go back to our history. We had multi-generational housing. Go back even thousands of years. We lived in multi-generational communities. And this is a way that in our current modern society, we can bring some of that back and make people's lives better.
That's so true. It's funny you're saying that because my dad's mom lived with us until she went home to be with the Lord, and my uncle also lived with us too, and which really brought my family to understanding a lot of our Portuguese roots because both of them were from the old country, and it's so cool. I love that aspect too. I hadn't really thought of it again until you just mentioned it, but what a cool thing that who's the wisest people in your family? It's typically the ones that are 20 years older than you are, and they get to bring a new level of nurturing and fun to the home. That what a great way to think of that, Avi.
Yeah, no, I grew up in Worcester, and my grandmother, my mother's mother, lived with us for some time. And it was amazing having her in the house. She lived in it wasn't an ADU per se, but we had an extra bedroom in the basement, and she lived down there for a number of years.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it brings something to the family, and it brings you more connection and a lot of fond memories of playing with her.
yeah. That's awesome. That's so cool. Hey, so quickly, I want to just tell a quick story. I talked to you about it yesterday. It was awesome because there's nothing better than explaining something that happened to you, and then the person has the exact reason why and can go right to the zoning law and explain it. So I was telling Harvey yesterday, I went to the building department in my town and spoke to the inspector and told them I own a duplex in the town and I want to do an ADU. And I know that the zoning in the town, any single family home can do a duplex. Well, we had already done a duplex. And I asked him, and he said, yep, you can do one. So I'm excited. That was about 6 months ago. I'm excited. I actually went and got Board of Health testing for my land to make sure that we can do a septic in that area where I want to put this. And I go back to see him about 2 months ago, and I'm saying, oh, I'm excited. I've already done some testing in the land. I got my perk test done, and I want to get going on some design stuff with the ADU I talked to you about. He's like, well, we talked to town council, and you've already gotten, because you've got you had a single family lot, but you made it into a duplex already. You can't put an ADU on your property. And I was, when you get perk tests, they're not free. So I'm like, what the heck? I got a little grouchy, and I'm like, you told me back at 6 months ago. But the conversation didn't go sideways or anything. I just reminded him of what he had said. And he's like, that is the way I interpreted it until town council looked at it. Well, I happened to be in there for something else about a month ago, maybe not even a month ago. And I was like, so how's everything going with the ADUs? And he said, oh, we got about 20 people that are about to pull permits on them. I'm like, so I got to talking to him again. And I had told him a little bit about what we had discussed over the last 2 visits. And he said, oh, you can do one. He's like, yeah, you can do one now, even though you have a duplex. I'm like, I can. He's like, yeah, well, they finished the law and you can. And so, Avi, me explaining this story, I think it's a cool one for people out there to know. Um, what happened there? What do you think happened as I was talking to him and going through these 3 separate meetings with him?
Yes, yeah. So first, it's a frustrating experience, right? Like this is not atypical for you go to the building department and imagine a homeowner trying to figure this out on their own.
Yeah.
It's not atypical, right? Like you don't get a straight answer, you get the runaround. Even everyone's well intentioned. The building inspectors are great people and they're trying to do their best, but
That's right.
the regulations are complex and they don't always have the answer. But what we just went through is a big period of transition. The law was passed August 2024, and it was just the law. It didn't go into effect yet, though. There was a 6-month period for the regulations to be promulgated, and the law itself had some details, but not everything. And so during that 6-month period, we were waiting for guidance from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities as part of the state, the EOHLC. Now, they didn't put out those regulations till much later, till January of this year of 2025. So probably the first time you went, it was after the law had been passed, before the regulations had been put out there. Now the regulations were put out. Now even these regulations, they don't cover everything. They just cover. They give you a little bit more guidance to the municipalities about what they can and cannot regulate, but they don't spell out every scenario. Now your question in particular: am I allowed to do this in a duplex? When it was just the law, it wasn't clear. Are we talking about single families, zoning? What are we talking about? But now from this regulation from the EOHLC, it says if you're in a zone that's single family residential, then you're allowed to do it, period. Now, the thing is, what does that mean? Single family residential zone. Like there's no statewide definitions of these zones. Every municipality defines them their own way. And you should see some of these definitions. They're crazy.
Yeah.
We should do a separate episode on like some of the craziest things we've seen in these zoning codes.
We can do that. We can do that.
We can do an episode of Portlandia about this. But so what it says is in the new state definition that's now being put out, and all the municipalities have to abide by this. It says if a single family is allowed in that zone, either by right or special permit, then we're considering that a single family zone. Great.
Wow. So wait, I just want to cut you off there because I didn't catch this yesterday. So if it's by special permit, you're saying it's by right now?
I'm saying
or you can go for the special permit and get it, just to make sure. I want to clarify on that.
Right. So I'm just talking about what counts as a single family zone.
Okay.
So, the zone could be called multifamily residential 2 or whatever its crazy name the municipality calls it. But if the town allows a single family to also be built in that zone, then that zone is single family.
Wow.
And that means that you're allowed to build an ADU. So if you have a duplex and that duplex is in a zone where there's also allowed to be single families, then you're also allowed to build an ADU.
Boy, that's amazing.
Yeah. Now, not everything is spelled out here exactly in the regulations, and I think there's going to be a period of time where things get pushed back and forth between, and maybe there could be some, if the town interprets it too strictly. I can imagine a scenario where a homeowner or a builder ends up suing the town, and the attorney general or the courts will have to decide what exactly happens there. But the code is the law is pretty clear. They can't unreasonably regulate it. Now, the other exciting thing is the dimensional controls from the town still apply to that ADU. So if they say you have a 5-foot setback in that zone, you still have to do that 5-foot setback.
Okay. Yeah.
But they can't make the regulations. They can't make those dimensional controls more restrictive than they would be for that principal building. So if the zoning for your duplex says the rear setback is 10 feet, they can't say your ADU has to be 20 feet back.
Wow.
It can't be worse.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I want you to correct me here. Slap me in the shape on this one. So to do a ADU, it's only if you live in the house, correct?
No, not anymore.
That's I'm just blown away. When you told me that yesterday, I can't even fathom that.
No, out of we've looked at 400 municipalities across Rhode Island and Massachusetts so far. We're expanding our software, the Builder.ai. We're expanding this to all of New England shortly, and then beyond that. But out of all the towns before these laws came into effect, of the few towns that allowed ADUs, they used to require you to own or occupy, meaning you had to live either in the main house or the ADU, and that was just a requirement. And if you didn't, they would yank your permit, yank your. You'd have to tear it out or take out the kitchen or something. Not anymore. The state said, look, we need housing, we need rental
Yep.
housing, we need owner occupied, we need everything. So you can have an investor property. You can own a duplex where you rent out both units and add an ADU to it and rent that out too.
Wow. It's such a powerful law, and I want people to know about it. I'm so hopeful that people make it past the beginning of this and see how much this can change things for them.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be all aspects of this are good, because if we don't have housing and people aren't close enough to the cities and they don't have reasonable places to stay and do the work for all different layers of cultures and stuff in the state, then we're not gonna have people that can do a lot of the different jobs living in areas where they need to. And it's just I'm so thankful that that this is coming to fruition. I really am.
Yeah, no, I think it'll make a big difference. And I think some of the objections that people might have to this, there's always pushback, anything new, right?
Yep.
And I know that housing costs are through the roof, and
Hmm.
I, you know, I've
They
been
are.
working as a real estate broker. I have my own brokerage here outside of Boston, and I work with people every day who are struggling to get into that starter home or struggling to have space for their family. I think this is going to help so much. But some of the objections that we might hear are, oh, they'll make too much density, or it'll make it'll overload the schools, or overload the roads, things like that. But I think when you look at the actual regulation, it's very thoughtful. And I really don't think we're going to run into those issues. First of
No.
all, because in terms of like the overcrowding question, first, look, the town's dimensional regulations still apply to that lot. So you're still going to have the setbacks. If you have a lot coverage maximum, that still applies. And then in terms of the overcrowding question, look, who's moving into these ADUs? These are typically, well, they pretty much max out around 900 square feet.
Yep.
A town could allow more, but by the state, it maxes out at 900 square feet. You're getting one, maybe two bedrooms. You sort of max
Yep.
out around two bedrooms. You're not getting, 7, 8 people living in there. It's typically, and we've done a lot of talking. We've talked to so many people around this, and we've had so many people call us. Really, most of the calls are people who need to age in place or need a place for their parents.
Yes.
We're,
That's
we're
what
not,
we're noticing as well. Yeah.
yeah. And people in that generation, they're not going to the elementary schools. They're well past that.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. So
but
I agree with all that a lot. But I need you to people listen up on this. I want you to hear about this. This is another real important. And if you're another contractor and you're watching this, please listen. Ari, take some time right now and explain what you guys got cooking with the Builders AI. It's really cool. We've actually invested in it. We're so thankful for it. So please bring people up to date on what's going on with that.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I'm so excited. You're one of our key partners here, and we're excited to work with you on this. And we share this vision with you. Um, so our software, you can check it out. It's thebuilder.ai, and it's really intended for builders, but some homeowners come through too to check out their lot.
Yep.
Now, as we talked about before, there's a patchwork of regulation. Every town has its own 200, 300 page PDF document of what the zoning regulation is. It's hard to know what you're allowed to do on your given lot. Like you said, you paid some money for that perk test. A
Yep.
homeowner also would have to pay for, before you start doing an ADU, you have to do some survey work. You need a site plan. You got to invest a little bit of money, sometimes several $1,000s before you even put in the permit, right? So how do you know if it's worthwhile, if your lot even qualifies, or what is in the realm of possibility for you to do on your lot? That's the starting question for us. We want to help you with that question. So you come to our website, you put in any address, currently Massachusetts and Rhode Island, soon well beyond, and we analyze the specific zoning code for your specific lot. We tell you.
Wait, stop right there for 1 sec, Avi. I want you to say that again. People, this is making this whole decision of doing an ADU so easy for you. Please say that one more time. That is huge.
Yeah, but you come to our website, you put in your address, and we tell you, we give you a pre-feasibility analysis to give you confidence.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Exactly. So that way you have the confidence, should you invest in this process or not? Like, and we show you where on your lot we think you probably could do an ADU. We analyze, we tell you, are there wetlands or wetland buffer that affect your lot? Are there historical restrictions? What are the setbacks? We estimate your floor area ratio, your lot coverage maximum. So then your next call, you call John and say, hey, it looks like I have extra capacity. I have buildable area on my lot. I want to invest in the survey. I want to get this going. And that way, you're already 2 steps ahead.
Yeah, it's so cool. We actually have it on one of our sites, and it's getting a lot of traction, and we're so thankful for it. But it just what is there better in life than taking something that's complex and simplifying it that anyone can use it, right?
Yeah, I mean, so I'd say that again. I just want to make sure everyone heard. If you want to try it yourself, you can go to Brittivia.com to John's site, and there's a link on there. You can see. So we have on there the light version. John has behind the scenes the full version with all the zoning, but you can go on there and it'll show you sort of a traffic light, red, yellow, green for your specific lot. You can play around with it, try different floor plans, see what might work there, and what we're trying to do is just clarify or simplify the regulations for you so that you don't have to read 300 pages, go to 12 different websites to figure out what kind of zone you're on. Are you historic or not? Are you floodplain or not? You come to one site, see, all right, this looks promising, and get your project going, because we need more housing and we need every homeowner to be a mini developer.
Yep, absolutely. And you will reap major benefits by doing this now, because it's if you don't do an ADU now, having the info is great. People are going to need them in the future. There's no doubt about it. And you might as well get the info now. But which brings me to another question, and I need some more correction, Avi. Please correct me on this. Pre-existing non-conforming, you're out of the game. You can't do an ADU, right?
This was one of the coolest things that was in here. So this was in the EOHLC, the Executive Office of Housing Livable Communities. They stuck this in the regulations, and it says, I'll read it to you. A municipality may not prohibit the development of a protected use ADU in an existing structure or principal dwelling or lot due to nonconformance that could be used for or converted into a protected use ADU in conformance with the building code and state law. Wow. So what this means, you have a barn and it's over the setback. You have an existing barn or an existing garage. A lot of people call us, and the garage is like right on the lot line, right? That's non-conforming. It's supposed to be whatever the setback is. But all the houses here are like 100, 120 years old. Nothing conforms to the zoning code that was put in place 100 years later.
That's right.
So that will not disqualify you from turning that garage, from that barn, that shed, into an ADU.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's like when we talked, right? We only talked for what, maybe 15 minutes yesterday. Every 2 minutes, I was blown away. And I've done some research on this. I haven't dug in like you have, and I just hope people realize that watch this, then get to Builder AI, come to it through us, or however, just get to that info and learn what you can do with your property. Even let's just say you're just you're moving and you're selling. That's a great piece of information to add to your listing packet. It really is. I mean, it's something special that's going on. It's game changing. And I actually believe it can bring people into a new tax bracket for sure because of not that taxes are fun, but if you're making more money, they happen. And I'm I've been, like I said, I've been doing this a long time, and I've never seen such a homeowner friendly zoning package come through ever.
Yeah, I think this is the first step. I think that it will get better over time. I think each town is gonna look at this, and some towns will welcome it, and some towns will try and push back a little bit and implement dimensional controls that are edging towards unreasonable. So
Yep,
we want to keep an eye on that, and that's the reason to check for your specific town and to
that's
connect with a
right.
professional, to connect with someone like Brittiva, who's going to look into it and help you build what you're allowed to build.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
and there's
so
some other interesting things in here too. Something you asked about yesterday was the idea of what's the maximum size that you're allowed to build, right?
yep,
So the law says you can do 900, the lesser of 900 square feet or half of the gross floor area of the principal structure,
yep.
if the whichever is less. So if the principal structure is 1,600 square feet, the main house, then you can make the ADU 800 square feet.
Does it say, can I just ask you about that? Does it say principal structure or does it say principal dwelling unit?
It's a principal dwelling, and that's a
Dwelling or dwelling unit?
dwelling. And
Oh,
I think I know where you're going with this, but hey, go ahead.
wow, that's awesome. That's
Yeah,
cool too. Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Well,
really awesome.
well, I think where you're going with that is like you're saying for a duplex, right? Like you
Right.
own both
Yeah.
units, and so what is the gross floor area of that house? Is it the larger of those two units, or is it the whole house, right?
Right. That's the question.
So I think a lot of people are going to misinterpret this. I'm going to tell you my interpretation, and
Okay.
I'll tell you why
And
I
I
think.
and just for so everybody knows, I love your interpretation of it.
Thanks. So the state first of all, every single municipality has their own definition of gross floor area. Uh,
Okay.
they some include basement, some don't. Some
Okay.
include the third floor, the attic space, some don't. Some have crazy regulations like you need to have 7 feet of ceiling height plus 5 feet of horizontal plane space from each point on that space to counter it. There's like every permutation of gross floor area as a definition is out there. So the state, because gross floor area determines how big of an ADU you can build, if you have less than 1,800 square feet of gross floor area, then that's the determining factor, right? So the state had to put out a definition to use for this calculation. And so part of this, they say, okay, we're including basements, but we're not including crawl spaces. We're not including garage parking areas, attics, porches. That does not count towards your gross floor area. But then there's this line in here in the state's definition where they say if there's multiple principal dwellings on the lot, then it's the gross floor area of the largest principal dwelling. That's what should be used to determine the maximum size of your ADU.
Okay.
But if you read just that line, then you would say, oh, well, then if it's a duplex, maybe you would mistakenly think, oh, it's the size of the larger one. Right? And
Yep.
I don't think that's the case because it uses a specific definition here. It says principal dwelling. They have a definition in the regulation of what principal dwelling is. So you have to look, 3 inches further down on that page, and you see that definition, and it says a principal dwelling is a structure, and regardless of whether it conforms or not, that contains at least one dwelling unit. It doesn't say that
Oh,
contains
it's that's very defined.
it doesn't say that contains one dwelling unit. It says that contains at least one dwelling unit, right? So so my interpretation of their intention here is they meant like, look, if you have two different houses completely separate on the same lot, then use the gross floor area of the larger one. But if you have a single structure, regardless of how many dwelling units are in that principal dwelling, that's one principal dwelling.
Wow. Well, it's so that's so specific, and I love my building inspector. I love my town, all that. I really do. It's a great town. I grew up right in the town next door. They're very, very good people and stuff. But that is so specific, and I can't wait to go and chat with them about it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, it's short. That is just so blatant right there.
it's pretty straightforward to me. But I'm not a lawyer.
No, I get
But
that. But you may play one on the internet.
on the podcast, right? No, but I agree. I think it's pretty straightforward. But so I think the other question that's going to come up a lot, people get. I think at this point, anyone listening has to be super excited about building an ADU. And if you gotten to this point, thank you for sticking with us, and you're probably super interested in one. And your next question is going to be, okay, after I check the website and see is it look feasible that I could pursue this? Your next question is naturally going to be, how much does this cost? Right. So, John, maybe you can speak more to that, and maybe you can tell us more about sort of the difference between an in-home apartment, like a basement conversion, versus an addition versus a backyard cottage.
Yeah, that's great question, Avi. I am very thankful that you asked that. And if you're doing something inside an existing house, we can break it. We can stay below the 100,000 mark in a lot of. There's some situations where we can't. Oh yeah, if it's in a, everything kind of has to line up as far as how the heating system's set up, how the plumbing's set up, where the electric is, if it's a finished basement already and they want to put it on the first or second floor, all that stuff. If it's a basement, how the plumbing's set up, where the drain pipe exits the basement. There's a lot of little nuances, but we can break the 100,000 mark a lot of times.
That's
and
incredible.
Which is it's pretty exciting. Yeah.
So that means someone could invest like 100,000, get a 2-bedroom apartment in their basement, get 3,000-4,000 a month rent. I mean, you're not going to find a better real estate investment than that.
That's what I'm saying. And it's amazing. Now, I do want to preface that and say that would typically be in a water sewer. If you have city water, city sewer, that's kind of where we can really start to save some money for folks. We start breaking away and doing detached stuff. We're gonna we did a contract on one last year that was in Metro West. They had a septic. All we had to do was add one trench to the septic. It was a single bedroom, 400 square foot unit, and we were under 200 grand.
That's incredible. That's amazing. Now,
It is. So people sometimes hear that and they're like, well, under 200 grand, that sounds like a lot of money coming from inside a house. But what you got to remember is we're doing a full foundation and like heat. You go to heat it. That's the biggest thing, is figuring out the heat, the plumbing, and electric, because you still are doing, you have to do, I mean, you're not going to build something without a minimum of a 200 amp service, right? You wouldn't do it. No, wouldn't make sense.
Not for
you got heating. Right? You hit a threshold where something's so small, you still got to do a certain size heating unit, especially with the way that the res check laws are and the HERS rating laws are. You know what I mean? You kind of get bound up in a spot where you got to pay a certain amount for a heating system. So, but we're breaking 200 grand where we're keeping it below that threshold in a lot of situations. Not always, but a lot of situations. You get up in the 900 range, you'd be south of 300 to just over 300. The big thing is the site work. And we're starting to do some kind of cool stuff where we're designing things with a monolithic pour, or an Alaskan slab, if you will. So maybe we can get people into these for less if we do it on a slab instead of on a full basement. And obviously we have the frost protection. That's the biggest thing. And there's different ways to protect against movement in that situation. And it's saving people a lot of money. So there's always a way. We can nip and tuck where we can. There's other spots where I tell people to spend a little extra. But we're starting to hit some really cool reasonable ways to do these.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm not sure if you saw the updated incentives for Mass Save. You mentioned the HERS rating. If you're at
Yep.
a level 2, uh, whatever the tier level 2 for the energy efficiency, you qualify for like $30,000 incentives now
Yeah.
from Mass Save, and that applies to AD. I mean, you're talking about the cost, like the foundation, things like that. Whether you're doing 400 square feet or 700 square feet, I mean, you have a lot of fixed costs, right? Like this is you're essentially building as a detached structure. You're building a new house. Um,
Yeah, correct. Yep.
so sometimes people I think are a little surprised by the price per square foot, but I think you have to keep that in mind. Is that it's a new structure, insulation, foundation, utility lines. Like that doesn't matter if you're building 400 square feet or you
That's
know
the yeah. You're exactly right. That's the pricing hurdle that we're starting to figure out little ways to overcome. So
yeah. There's something interesting in the guidance from the EOHLC. They said that the municipality can't require separate utility connection. Um, that they're they can't say, oh, you need to do a separate connection from the street. So I thought that was an interesting point. What do you think about that?
I think that's great. Yeah, I ran it on one of the projects that we're starting to talk to some folks on in Worcester, and you're talking. You can spend over $10,000 in water sewer tie-in fees. That's fees if you're doing both water and sewer, just fees to get to the road and tie into them. Forget about digging the trenches, keeping them 10 feet apart. If the water's on the other side of the sewer, you have to keep the water above the sewer, and it could be lower than the sewer. And in a lot of different, or you could have a 13, 18-foot cut to get down to where the lines are, which is a very dangerous trenching situation. But when you could, if you could just bring it into the basement of the existing house, huge.
Right,
Once
right.
again,
As long as the utility, of course, the utility can have their own requirements, but it's nice that you have some protection there. But
yeah,
then for a backyard cottage, what would you say is like the price range if someone wanted to do a standalone 2 bedroom uh, backyard cottage? And I mean, even with septic probably adds some amount, right? But what would be
it
sort of the
does. Yeah.
range if you're sewer versus septic?
You're saying there's already a cottage there and you're renovating, or you're saying brand new ground up
Let's say
cottage out back?
let's start with that. Let's start with a brand new ground up cottage.
If it's as easy as putting one more trench in a septic system, and then they have enough water flow in the well to add to it, you could. And you're saying 900 square feet is what you just said, 2 bedroom.
Yeah.
You can be just below or just over 3. I mean, I think there are situations where if we could do it on a slab and the grades work out that way that it would work, I could maybe even be under 250. You know what I mean? A lot of it's going to be based on the site. There's some things you just can't change with the site. And then as soon as we get started, there's a lot of evidence you can look for that tells you the groundwater's high or that there's ledge. But there's sometimes you have no clue that there's ledge 4 feet down, and you start digging and you run into stuff like that.
Right.
But
That's with any project,
there
right?
are, if we go everything perfect, I think you can break the 250 mark.
That makes sense. And then let's go the other direction. Like some people listening have a more ambitious plans, right? Maybe they have an existing garage. They want to renovate the garage, put a nice large apartment. In some of these towns, by special permit, you can go much larger than 900 square feet. Maybe you do 1,200 or 1,500 square feet. In that case, you're building pretty much like a whole house. In that case, I imagine it probably double or more in the price. And there's no limit to, I mean, you can make these. I think sometimes you might think of an ADU or backyard cottage as a very simple thing, but uh, for everyone listening, you don't have to limit yourself to that. You could build yourself a real luxury place that you can stay and you can build a little palace back there. You can spend 600,000 or more if you want to.
You're absolutely right. But you got that the sky's the limit. the price kind of goes right along with that. And finishes and fixtures can change things a lot. Um, if we're kind of trying to keep the price as low as possible and get people into these with a nice product, you're probably going to end up with a fiberglass shower, tub unit, or something like that. Where we've priced some out now with all tile, no dams in where the shower is, that just an open bathroom so that in case someone is older and they're in a wheelchair or whatever, the sky's the limit. But as you add those little things on, square footage or whatever, it can be more and more. I will say, if you're doing stuff like that, it's probably going to be a heck of a lot more feasible if you do have water and sewer at the existing house already that we can tie into the basement to try to get the price to work than a septic and well. But it, like you just said, anything's possible.
I think that's
And we
what's
do it all.
exciting about this. Yeah.
We've done $1 million houses to smaller houses to deck and roof renovations. Just we've done it all, so it's very easy for us. It's just what you're looking for, and would love to have people come and check this out. Look at the Builder AI stuff and see if it's feasible for where you're at, and have us over.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I'm excited about this. This opens up a range of possibilities for, someone who wants to put rental in their basement, all the way up to someone that wants, a retirement, ADA compliant palace for their parents. Like,
Yeah.
it opens it all up. A lot of different possibilities, a lot of different use cases. You don't have to pigeonhole yourself into just one of these scenarios. But the way to start, I think, like John said, go to Brittiva or go to thebuilder.ai, check out what's possible, and let's build some housing.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get people in nice apartments slash new mansions in the backyard. And so Avi, I think everyone can see why my level of excitement on this podcast was probably about 10 notches higher than any of the others. Not only because of Arby being here and being able to transfer great information, but also for the fact that this is opening up to everybody. It's something special. I want people to see how important this is, that this information. Information's power, and it's all there, and through Builder AI, it's very, very easy to kind of figure out your own situation at your house. So thank you all very much. I think everyone agreed. Podcast number 4 is bringing things each one to a new level, and we're thankful. Please like, share, comment. As a matter of fact, one of the comments is probably going to be within the next 8 weeks. We're probably going to be doing a podcast on one of the comments that we've already gotten. So thank you all out there, and have a blessed day.
John, thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure, as always, talking with you, and it's a real honor to be your 4th guest.
Take care, Avi.